Hey everyone! It's Daily Mr. Reddit here, and I'm so excited to share this video with you containing the funniest, craziest, and weirdest stories. The kind that makes you laugh out loud, or just shake your head in disbelief. I've gathered some of the funniest stories from all around the world to share with you on this compilation. I hope you enjoy this video. Story 1. When did the class clown take it too far? Had a friend in high school, always would invite me to his parties. He was a popular guy on the wrestling team, and I was not. So he was always trying to hook me up with chicks. Anyways, I went to a few of the parties and each got crazier. The final one was insane. At the party were hundreds of people. Went upstairs to check on my friend because he'd had a lot to drink. Passed the bathroom where some guys were popping Molly, then went to the room he was in. As I was about to knock, he opens the door, looks me dead in the eyes and says I just got f'd in the ass with the most pale and wild expression. Instantly I ask him if he's okay. A split second later he just flips his mind and expression to being the charismatic jock that he is. The other guy was another ladies' man jock on the football team. He came up to me a few days later and laughed it off like it was a joke and was like, what happened at the party stays at the party. LOL, just clowning around I guess. Both are now happily married to women. I can only imagine how they initiated that. Story 2. I knew a guy, a high school student in the late 60s. He and his best friend were very close, but had also dated the same girl. My buddy dated this girl first, now the friend was dating her. No problems, but they both understood how this could be perceived as a potential friendship ender. They had a joke all planned out. The best friend grabbed some ketchup packets from a fast food restaurant. After lunch, he was sitting in class with the packets torn slightly, tucked unnoticeably in his hand. My buddy had the starter pistol from the track and field team. You see where this is going? My buddy ran into the classroom and shouted, "You can't steal my girl from me. If I can't have her, no one can." He fired the starter pistol, filled with blanks, not bullets, in the direction of his best friend. The friend, who had jumped up from his desk during the shouting, clutched his chest from the fake bullet wound, sending horrifying streaks of red ketchup flying all over his white t-shirt. He collapsed. The look of horror on the face of every student in the room, my buddy said, was amazing. He and his best friend both got detention. Sometimes I think about this story, and I wonder what would happen if high school students tried this in 2023. It's crazy how much times change in just a couple of generations. Story 3. My sophomore year of high school, it was an English class and there were 4 class clowns in the same class. Second semester of school, so it was shortly after I'd been switched from one teacher's class to the new one. During the first semester, there was a student a grade below us that had just passed away, and the year before that my cousin had done the same. The teacher walked out of the classroom to take something to get printed or something and left the only senior in the class in charge. Both she and I were close to the deceased freshman's family and had struggled with his death together. Not a minute after the teacher left, 2 of the clowns got up and went over to the windows, grabbed the pull string to the blinds, and used it as a noose to hang themselves. Some kids laughed, some kids told them to knock it off, a few just wanted to finish their worksheets, but I had to leave the classroom and I passed the teacher in the hall. She saw I was crying and asked what happened. I was trying to explain while sobbing when the senior came out after chewing the clowns a new one and explained to the teacher what had happened. She actually escorted everyone except the clowns out of the classroom so she wouldn't disturb the other classes around us with how much and how loudly she yelled at them. Story 4. This actually was the final straw for me as a teacher. After this happened, and I received no support from my admin, I decided not to go back to that school. I taught high school for 3 years and I had a class last year that was an absolute nightmare. Individually, the students were all clowns at the worst, but together they were a horde of disrespectful monsters. There was a group of boys who were the worst offenders and they had a friend who, to me, was more of an observer. I'll call him Todd. He was a really solid kid with a decent work ethic and was rather intelligent. I got him as a student halfway through the year and never had an issue with him, but he was definitely starting to get closer with this group of troublemakers. One kid, who I'll call Eric, was an instigator. I sat Todd next to Eric in the hopes that some of Todd's personality would run off on Eric. I should have known better. It happened that Eric's personality started to rub off on Todd, but I never would have expected what happened. I was at my desk and this kid and I were talking about something. I turned around to grab something behind me and a mug that said best teacher fell and smashed on the floor. The student at my desk looked surprised. If he did it on purpose or not, but I was just genuinely sad my mug broke because a student had just given it to me. From the back of the class I hear Eric say, "Ah look, she's so sad her mug broke," and started laughing. I hear Todd say something and Eric is losing it laughing. At this point I'm really just trying to ignore the behavior because it is near the end of the year and I just want to be done with this group of kids. Then Eric says, "Say it louder so that she will hear you." And Todd proclaims, "I have something that will cheer you up, Ms. LOL. He stands out of his desk, which is a big no-no in the class, without permission, and I ask him to please remain in the seat, but he replies, "No, really, let me show you." I can cheer you up with his hand in his pocket. I'm like, maybe it's a picture of a puppy or some shit. Fine, let me see. Okay, again, I should have known better. Kiddo stands at the front of the class and pulls a Trojan Magnum condom from his pocket and smiles, holding it up in my face, and says, "I can cheer you up," with the entire class looking on. Story 5. Junior year in high school in Algebra 2, the teacher was kind of a douche, so this one guy, let's call him Mike, would give him a hard time. This was a regular thing, and Mike would get kicked out of class for saying and doing some inappropriate stuff, but we all thought it was hilarious. One day, our teacher didn't show up to class. Word got around that his oldest son had died of an overdose and he had to take some personal time off. He didn't show back up until a week later and he looked really sullen and down. During class, Mike pulled out a can of Coca-Cola and started sipping it nonchalantly. Teacher had a strict no eating or drinking in class policy and Mike was aware of this. He told Mike to throw it away and step outside. Mike, the absolute f***ing savage, says, "Look, I know you don't like Coke, but I'm sure your son did." Nobody laughed. Just silence. Some people didn't get it. The ones who did were just too shocked to say anything like me. Mike threw his drink away and walked out of the classroom while the teacher just sort of haphazardly continued his lesson, although we could tell Mike's comment f***ed him up. Story 6. The really attractive popular girl was chatting on the school field. Class clown took a skateboard off someone and decided to draw attention to himself by riding it down the path towards her. I think in his 13-year-old brain he was going to impress her with his daredevil skills, then he was going to accidentally on purpose fall/leap off and grab her for support. I assume his brain made him think that in the worst case she would get knocked to the floor and then he could use this opportunity to grab her hand to pull her up again. What actually happened is that he went way too fast and smashed into her. He then landed heavily on top of her. She couldn't move and was fully screaming, saying she couldn't move and couldn't feel her legs. We all thought her back was broken. Teachers came running. An ambulance had to be called to the school field. She got taken away in a stretcher and neck brace. Luckily it wasn't broken and she was okay after hospital and a few weeks off school. Not sure what actually was wrong with her, sorry. Class clown moved to Australia not long after, so he got lucky there. I imagine he stays awake at night thinking about this. Story 7. First year of middle school we met the class clown, funny little fucker. Was the most entertaining part of school for us and he usually pushed the boundaries, but that's why people liked him and found him a funny character, because he went overboard and it was always a blast. But one time I remember like it was yesterday, he hatched a plan for everyone to hide in the classroom from the teacher. We followed, all hiding. The problem was, the roll was done every 40 minutes to prevent wagging. Teacher came and freaked the FCK out, ran to the headmaster's office and the whole school went into lockdown. We didn't know it was because of us and so stayed hidden for an hour. All of our parents were sent lengthy emails regarding our little prank. We agreed not to DOB on the class clown, but some jackass spilt the beans and he got suspended. When he came back he wasn't quite the same class clown he was. And we all missed him. We still talk about this to this day and is often the first topic we go to when we catch up every now and then. Story 8. Our funny teacher thought it was worthy to mention that the class clown got the lowest grade on an assignment in the class and taught us a lesson about what happens when you goof around all day long and not pay attention. What everyone thought was funny, since the kid was usually very upbeat and happy, resulted in him getting so embarrassed that he ridiculed our teacher for being morbidly obese, single at 60 years old, and bald. No one understood why he would say such hurtful words as a clapback. No one laughed, but he was chuckling and brushed it off. Our teacher quietly got up as it got dead quiet, took a deep breath, flung a desk across the room, and yelled his lungs out to get the hell out of his classroom. I swear, you could hear the building shake. Once he cooled down he apologized, but you could hear the hurt in his voice. Our class was given a worksheet and no one said a word. He was at his desk the entire rest of class trying not to break down and at one point exited the room to talk to the teacher next door who was concerned and heard the whole thing. They ended up changing the kid's schedule completely around mid-school year just to switch him to another teacher. No one found him funny anymore after that. Story 9. Had a social teacher that wasn't liked by just casual social students. I mean, I liked him because he was a really good dungeon master and would often tell us about campaigns he did to make analogies and stuff. Anyway, he took a week off school. He came back for maybe 2 school days before he took the rest of the week off. Stuff begins to spread and it turns out that his mother had died and he took the first week off to fly to another town where she was being buried. The second time he took time off was because his wife started divorcing him and didn't want him to have custody over their daughter, who goes to the school he teaches at. When he finally comes back you can tell he's out of it. His hair is a mess, dark circles under the eyes, and his shirt isn't tucked in anymore. He was giving us a lecture on globalization or NAFTA when a group of boys at the back were really loud making jokes that made nearby students laugh as well. My teacher asked many times for them to quiet down. Finally, maybe 30 minutes of class is left, he just asks them to leave. Some of the boys got up and did so except one who was talking the most and decided to say, "Wow, you must really like it when people leave you." Poor man was so tired he asked this kid to go to the principal's office. After that he didn't finish the lecture and told us to just read the textbook or something. Man lost his whole family. I assume his father already passed. Story 10. So back in 4th grade, we had a kid, let's call him Gavin. One morning in science class he had gotten up from his seat, walked over to the teacher, grabbed the trash can, and dunked on the teacher. He literally hit the guy so he got suspended. There was also this one time when Gavin was running around the school literally juking all the teachers. There were like 4 teachers chasing him, and from him running around, we had a lockdown. Yes, a lockdown LMAO. Story 11. When I was in 3rd grade we were all doing our thing, coloring, reading, etc. The class clown was being really noisy and kept goofing off. We were all having fun and the class clown eventually sat down. It wasn't long before he was laying on the floor, foaming out of his mouth, shaking violently. We all laughed. It was a joke, right? Before long the teacher came rushing over to see the new joke the kid came up with. She immediately called 911 and he was rushed out of the room. He had a seizure while the whole class thought he was joking. He recovered and everything was fine. I just feel bad for the kid.